All right. Well, I guess we can get started. My name is Aaron McKeon. I'm the project manager for the Tuscarora Road Corridor Study. I'm with the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. We've been working with the village on this project, the village and the town, for a little over a year. Thank you all for your interest in this study. This is extremely helpful. This is very, very valuable for us to be able to talk to the community and get your comments and questions. Just to clarify, I am not going to go back through the presentation that's already online. Most of you, I think, have probably seen it. I feel like a lot of your names are familiar. You've provided some comments already on what was presented. It's about a 15-minute long presentation, and I thought it would be a lot more valuable. Our time is very valuable here. It'd be great to be able to hear your comments, get your questions. Kind of goes without saying, I'm not going to be able to answer every question in all likelihood. You know, you all have probably more detailed questions than we can get into. This is a planning study, and so we're kind of at the 20,000-foot view. There are details that just aren't, no one has answers to at this time. But your comments and questions will help help us flesh out ideas and see what's feasible for this Tuscarora Road corridor. Before we get into your questions, I just want to real quick take a look. Oh, actually, I should say this. We are going to record this, right, Mario? Are we already recording?
No, not yet. I was just waiting for the introduction piece.
That's perfect. Very good. Yeah, but we don't need to record this part. This is just going to be me explaining the controls. If you're not familiar with Zoom, the way we're going to do this is to kind of keep it orderly, because there's a whole, bunch of folks. If I could have you use the control to raise your hand to ask a question. So that there is a reactions button that you should be able to find on your Zoom interface. Use the reactions button, click the raise hand, and that will get you in queue to have your question or comment heard. When we get to you, we'll ask you to unmute, and then you can, make your comment, ask your question, and then we'll proceed from there. Also, you can, if you choose, you can use the chat window to type out your comment or question. That chat will only go to myself or to Mario, who is the SMTC's program manager. Yes, that's right. Also with the SMTC. And so he and I will field those questions, and we can get to those, as the meeting goes along. Also, when it is your turn to talk, use this unmute button down here. It should also be one of your controls on the left-hand side of your toolbar. And if you want us to see you, you can start your video at that time too. I guess you could do that now as well. I just wanted to, again, thank you for your participation. Oh. Oops. Okay, ignore that little doodle. Wait, I don't want to do that. Gosh, all right, I'm going to use this. All right, I without
recording in progress.
Recording now, and we'll start taking your comments and questions. All right, and first up, it looks like Donna Lynch. All right. So I'm going to ask Donna to unmute. That work?
I have no questions at this time.
Oh, okay. Oh, you just testing out the raise hand function. Oh. Okay. All right, I forget how to make that go away. Okay, Philip Teague. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Yes.
Hi.
This is Philip Teague, and I represent my business, Teague Accounting Experts, and I also speak for my tenants located in my plaza, located on the east end of Tuscarora Road.
Yep.
In addition to my tax preparation and accounting office, my tenants include 9 residential apartments, a hair salon, a podiatrist, the Oz Museum office, the Sullivan Food Cupboard, and the largest child care facility in the area. So my first question is, can I ask multiple questions all at once, or how do you want to do this?
Well, we could just have a more casual back and forth. I mean, let's start with the top of your list. Yeah.
Okay. Would the project use eminent domain to seize my property?
Well, okay. So that is a great starter question. First of all, right. This is at the planning stage, so nothing has been engineered. We're trying to sort of make sort of A versus B type decisions, very broad general decisions at this point in time. I would not expect at the eastern end, none of the concepts that we looked at sort of relied on taking private property. The only area where we could say, pretty good level of confidence right now that some eminent domain would probably be needed would be at that Bolivar Lake Tuscarora Road intersection to do a roundabout. So to do that, there's almost no way that I can see to do a roundabout there without some eminent domain. But through the rest of the corridor, now we haven't done surveys. We're not at a survey level of this or engineering level. We don't know exactly what the public right of way is on either side of the center line. But, in general, there's usually some amount of public right of way that is in excess of the paved width of the road. So, right, we're assuming that on the eastern end of the project, throughout the whole corridor, you could do the kinds of improvements we're talking about within the public right of way. So we would not be talking about takings, eminent domain takings at the eastern end.
Okay, but you're talking about putting in a sidewalk and putting in on-street parking, and that seems like a bit more space than what's available on the street side of the building.
Yes, right. Like I say, we don't know. We haven't done survey work. We don't exactly know what right of way is available in there. Normally the width of the roadway shoulder, up to the existing sidewalk that's a little bit further west of those properties. That's the alignment that we're looking at. So, there's an existing sidewalk on the north side of Tuscarora in front of, say, like the Dollar General area. A little further west, that alignment, one would expect would probably be the public right-of-way dimensions. That's usually how it goes. I don't have a survey of your property to back that up. Again, we're working at a very high level planning level at this point.
Okay, so I think what most of us on this end of the road are thinking that it's not really practical to do this project that affects us so drastically, because there's already a sidewalk on the south side of the road to make access to the trail system and whatnot. So
sure,
it just seems like a lot of work to actually harm businesses on the road for the benefit of a few to get recreational benefit several yards down the road.
Yes, that's a great point. I will say one thing that we did not really get into in the video presentation that will be discussed in an eventual report to accompany all this. That's months from now, honestly. Part of the thought there was to give drivers who are westbound on 5 the visual cue that Tuscarora Road is more of a residential road. So right now, if you're westbound on 5 and you're gonna, if you're gonna follow Route 5, you're gonna take a left-hand turn. But if you're gonna cut through on Tuscarora Road, you get the visual. Visually it's wide open. There's no sidewalks on the north side of the road. There's plenty of off-street parking. visually it has a very open suburban kind of look. And so part of what we're going for there was to close it off visually. Maybe, that's where kind of the idea of the grass strip, the on-street parking, and theoretically even street trees in there to close it off visually. That's part of the idea there. We're trying to look for ways to reduce cut-through traffic on Tuscarora Road, to give drivers the idea that this is, not a cut-through. There are pros and cons to that concept itself. But yeah, right. In looking at the parking, the off-street parking in your area, I was not, to be honest, I'm not positive that it even pencils out in terms of would you have sufficient off-street parking under the zoning code. I don't know if you've looked at that under existing zoning.
Yeah, but also to consider is what about handicap access and property values too?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Those the excellent considerations. Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron, if I can add to this conversation real quick, I think one item that we're certainly talking about here with the Eastern and particularly with these conversations, when we were suggesting recommendations or some improvements to that particular stretch of the corridor, I think we're envisioning that if they were to happen as a more longer term, certainly several years down the line, if that's something that yourself, Phil, and other members of the community, along with the village government itself, it's a larger conversation to really see what's a vision. How do we envision the corridor being in the future? And that particular stretch is the most commercial stretch of the 2.2 mile Tuscarora Road corridor that we're talking about. But as I said, we were really looking at those concepts as a longer term implementation rather than more of a shorter midterm like we might be talking about for some of the other proposed recommendations.
Sure. Mario, who gets the final say on this, the final sign off on this project? Who decides?
Final sign off on what would be implemented?
That it's going to happen.
To actual implementation would rest with the facility owner in this case, which would be the village. And I would imagine in conversation with business owners as well, if it would have an impact to a business frontage.
When would you guys come up with more of a visual concept for the East End and do all the other planning part of the project? When can we start to expect to see a more clearer picture of this?
Yeah, to be honest with you, our process doesn't get more detailed than what you've got. We don't have a plan to get into engineering level drawings. At this point, it's sort of more of a, like I say, we're at the 20,000 foot level. Is this the direction that the community wants to go in or not? If that question turns on some of these, real detailed bits of analysis, then it's going to have to be undertaken in a more detailed study.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you very much for your input.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Next, we're going to go to Kelly Hawk, I believe. Oh no, I'm sorry. I have Earl Denny at the top of the list. Okay. And it's just
I got it, Aaron.
Excellent.
For Kelly Hawk, if you would like to unmute.
Yes, I'm here.
Yep.
My only question is, after watching the video and the proposal, is the intersection, the Tuscarora Bolivar Road, Lake Street intersection, and the talk of a roundabout. And I was just wondering if there was any consideration for a four-way streetlight versus a roundabout.
Yeah, right. That's a comment that we've seen quite a bit in the comments that have come in online. We did not, none of our concepts propose an always stop or a streetlight there because of the engineering consideration known as warrants. So in other words, there are these guidelines in the book that's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Design that guides where and where not to put things like stop signs and traffic signals. So essentially it's a data-driven assessment, and you look at traffic volumes and you look at collision rates. And based on that analysis, that intersection it does not meet the warrants for either a street, a 3-color signal or an all-way stop. It's primarily because Bolivar and Lake just really don't have that much traffic, relative to the engineering standards. That doesn't mean that, this is ultimately a decision that rests with the village of Chenango and, the town of Sullivan, depending on where you're talking about. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, that happens sometimes that, signals go in where they do not meet warrants, but it would not be good practice for us to put that out there as an option, given the numbers that we see. So that's.
Thank you. I was just wondering why that wasn't brought as a consideration, and roundabout was just directly put in a plan.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the trend lately. Everywhere I go, there's these roundabouts.
Yeah.
In Bridgeport and out by Oneida Lake, Sylvan Beach area. There's one out there. So they're popping up all over where we used to have none, and now we've got a couple. And then I heard, we're going to have another one here. And sometimes the tractor trailers and all, and the big farm equipment, I just don't know if they're agile enough to, make it around a roundabout. But, that was my concern. So thank you for addressing it.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure we'll have more questions about the roundabout as we go along. The roundabout concept, which is just one of, basically two concepts that we had out there. So, let's see. Let's take the next comment, and I guess that's Earl Denny.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. The Five Corners, my mom owns that five-corner building. And of course, we have the same concerns that Mr. Teague has. And because we do have parking on the building. And so you're saying that the video that we watched is preliminary, and it's going to be down the road where more definite decisions are being made. But is there a end to do a rendering of what the thoughts may be as far as parking and the rest of that? I know exactly what Mr. Teague is talking about, and holy cow, I mean, he'd have to have steps to get into his building and everything else never mind. I'll just stop right.
No, but we have sidewalks.
The other side of the road, so we have the same thought as Mr. Teague does.
Yeah.
And I understand you wanting to make it look more suburban, neighborhood type thing, but speed bumps and a roundabout, which is very costly, but speed bumps aren't. That'll slow things down.
The code.
I guess it's an open to say if I'm incorrect or whatever.
Well, no, I mean, this is valuable input. I mean, first of all, I guess the question of a more detailed, a more detailed rendering, a more detailed design of what things could look like on the eastern end. Like I say, that to be frank, that's not sort of part of our scope of work to get into that level of design detail. But yeah, that's certainly an interesting question. And we could potentially take a look and see how if we could sharpen our pencils on that one at all, to use a phrase. In terms of say speed bumps versus roundabouts, a lot of people have objections to speed bumps, just like they have objections to roundabouts. So it's kind of one of these things where we're trying to find a solution that achieves the traffic calming improves safety, and also, works with the farm equipment, as we just heard. Roundabouts can do these things. That is the nice thing. It's a very flexible form of traffic control that's been shown to improve safety. It can handle large vehicles. It can handle lots of traffic, and it's better in terms of traffic movement than something like an all-way stop. If you had a four-way stop versus a roundabout's always going to be better. It's always it's a winning proposition from that regard. You're absolutely correct about the cost. Yeah.
No, okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah. In terms of cost, it's more expensive. In theory, the village could apply for federal funding for that. That would go through state DOT to reimburse, the vast majority of that cost. So
I guess one more question, if I can retain it long enough.
That's all I wonder about.
I wonder how many people. How many people are registered for your meeting?
how many people are registered for the meeting?
Yeah.
It's just under 40, I believe.
We had 35. We had 35 registrants, and so far we have 27 participating on the Zoom session at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. I did have another question, doggone. Oh, as the village makes more decisions, will you be brought in to do more engineering? I guess I missed part of the beginning.
In all likelihood, no. I mean, truthfully, our job is primarily to try to identify what the issues are with the corridor. Try to kind of put those into categories, identify which issues are sort of most important to members of the community, and identify viable solutions for those issues. And then, we're using this public process to try to sort out, which solutions are most appealing, which ideas are, maybe don't have a lot of community support, which ideas do have a fair amount of community support. So that's really our function. At the end of it, we'll prepare a report and give it to the village. Basically, the conclusion of that report will be, these are some ideas. These are the strengths and weaknesses of those ideas. This is what we heard from the community. So it's sort of a fact-finding mission. I should clarify, I'm not a project engineer. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm a transportation planner. So okay. You don't want me to design your road for you.
Okay. I thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your questions and comments. All right. So Christy Rom.
It's Rami and it's her husband. Sorry about the confusion.
No problem.
I just wanted to say thank you guys, first of all, for doing this and the planning you've done. It looks like you've obviously done your homework. I just had a quick question or a concern to share with doing all this and what that would do to the Burning Hollow, Oliver Heights neighborhood.
Okay.
There's already a lot of traffic, and I know people who do this, and I see a lot more people who cut from Tuscarora through the neighborhood to get to Bolivar Road. So if you're going to then put the elevated walkways in, which I actually think is a really good idea, and then the roundabout, which I'm not as fond of, I just feel like that's going to encourage more people to cut through a residential neighborhood than going down to Tuscarora and then turning left onto Bolivar.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's a good one. That is not a comment we've heard before. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yep.
Aaron, if you don't mind, there's a comment that came in the chat that I think is close to what Mr. Ramey was just talking about.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'll read the questions.
Great, thank you.
What is the effect of level crosswalks on traffic speed and throughput? It's actually multiple questions here. Would level, non-raised crosswalks with beacons have noticeable impact on traffic?
Oh, good question. Yeah. Oh, okay. So in other words, would crosswalks and flashing beacons slow? In other words, would it affect traffic operations? No. The answer is no. There's no indication that certainly in this corridor, there's not the kind of pedestrian volume. You'd have to be seeing, say, 80 pedestrians an hour. Unless there's a special event, I don't believe you get that kind of pedestrian activity on this corridor. So no, that there would not be a perceptible change in, what we call a level of service of the corridor. So no, I'm going to say that is not something to be concerned about. And
Aaron, if you don't mind, there's another kind of follow up to that,
Yeah.
And it's in regards to the comparison of a raised crosswalk to a level crosswalk,
Sure.
and what impacts or not they may have relative to larger equipment.
Yeah, great question on the larger equipment. One of the comments that we had on the in response to the video was from Durfee Farm, and they, in their comments mentioned, and so I see you guys in the chat there. You're in line, and we can talk more about this when you're up for your comment. But if that clearance, if it's a question of extremely long pieces of equipment with only a few inches of clearance above the roadway, that may be an extremely good reason to no longer consider raised crosswalks. And that is going to get into a level of detail that truly I'm probably not equipped to get into. But the raised crosswalk concept, that's about a 3-inch clearance. And if the folks at Durfee Farm say, yeah, we have issues with vertical, barriers at that height, railroad tracks, that kind of thing, that is a very strong reason to consider not using raised crosswalks in that location. But as we go along, I do want to think about other, is that along the entire corridor, or is that at specific locations? So hopefully that answers that comment.
Aaron, that was actually from Steve.
Okay.
Steve, I see that you raised your hand. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute if you want to follow up on that.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm here with my son, Ben. First, I guess I would like to thank the village and the town. I think they do a great job maintaining the road. They keep it plowed. They get it plowed early in the morning. And the village does a great job of patrolling the road to keep the speed limit down to somewhat acceptable. So I really do appreciate the effort that the town and village has done. Going to your question about the raised sidewalks, a 3-inch, we probably could clear it. I mean, I thought in the study, it was saying it was something like 5 or 6 inches. But I guess what I'm more concerned about, first off, right above the Baptist church, there's some manhole covers that are recessed in the road an inch or two. With a raised bed of 3 inches, our farm equipment will have to come to a complete stop and ease our way across. We have no suspension on farm equipment, so it would be a very slow process.
Because you're saying at the manhole covers, you have to slow down. And
right, even though
pass you right on top of the hill.
Right, so when we were coming from Canastota, there's cars that are already behind us. And as soon as we make it up that first hill, they're looking for an opportunity to pass us. So they're passing us going down that hill into Bolivar Road. They're passing us at the Baptist church trying to make it up before the hill. And definitely when we get by Weber Road, people are sick and tired of following us. And they're looking for any opportunity to pass us. So if you're putting in things that are going to slow us down, people are going to be making poor decisions. So that is, a real concern of mine.
Yeah, I think a lot of the cutting through the neighborhoods is when traffic gets backed up behind the equipment. That's when you can save time cutting through neighborhoods. So if the equipment's going even slower, it makes that a more tempting option.
Yeah.
And then going to the Bolivar Lake Street intersection, that definitely is a poor intersection. They've talked about it for the the 60 years I've lived on Tuscarora Road, what to do about that. I mean, a roundabout to have the size that you would need for the tractor trailers that come here in our farm equipment, you would need a roundabout the size of the one over on Route 13 in Sylvan Beach. And that would take an awful lot of eminent domain.
Yep.
So I don't know how practical that would be. I mean, I think it'd be more practical to square those roads up. And I think that would help ease the congestion there, because you got such a bad angle. People don't know who's supposed to go first and they're waiting for one another. But I think if we had a nice square intersection, that would be the first step there. And then, we are concerned about the safety on the road for both vehicles and pedestrians, that, putting up some crosswalks with the beacons, that would be the first step. That would help the concern of a lot of the neighbors.
Level crosswalks.
Level
For
crosswalks.
the pedestrians to use when they need to get across.
And that would help the people, in Bolivar, Burning Hollows, wanting to get over to Kirchenheiner Park. That would give them an opportunity, because I know crossing Tuscarora Road at certain times of the day, you could stand there for 5 minutes waiting there. I mean, my son lives across the street and my grandson's there, and, crossing the road is really difficult. So, maybe a couple of the important intersections, I think a good first step would be a crosswalk.
Yeah, let me ask you. So we have 4 like raised features that we've thrown out there in these design concepts. 2 of them are right in the what I'd call them the center section. Nearest like Namick and Burning Hollow, in that area. That's obviously right on your path of travel. I guess what I'm wondering about is we also threw in the idea of a raised intersection at Race and Manor and Tuscarora on the eastern end of the project. How often do you take big pieces of equipment that could have a problem with like that 3-inch clearance? How often are you going that far east?
If we're going east on Tuscarora, 99% of the time we're going all the way down to the light.
Okay.
So we're going the whole way. Yeah.
We do have a little bit of land on Bolivar, but we own more land on Canasarega than we own on Bolivar.
Okay. And then what about the western end? Another idea that just sort of tossed in there is the idea of a raised crosswalk by that wheat field on the western end.
By the gas station?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if I know where you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just up from the gas station. So yeah, on Tuscarora, like there's that entrance to the subdivision that's pretty new.
Right. Yeah. Again, we go
that way. We're going down Tom and have
right.
Go straight.
We go that way a lot.
Yeah.
We're geographically we're right in the middle of the area we farm, so we go in every direction.
Okay.
From the farm to get to the fields to feed the cows.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if you've done any studies. Is there that much pedestrian traffic down at that end of the road that would warrant a sidewalk at this time?
At that end of the road? Well, the goal at that western end is really to make the whole plaza, the whole shopping plaza area, the Dunkin' Donuts, the grocery store, the pharmacy, to give that all some pedestrian accessibility. Truthfully, on the very far western end of Tuscarora, it's more like just because it's a logical continuation of the path to Route 5. So Route 5 is a major east-west facility. Kind of makes sense to get people to it. In terms of, is there sufficient pedestrian, what we call pedestrian demand to warrant a raised crosswalk there at the western end? It would really be more in the line of traffic calming. So it's sort of less critical to have that crosswalk there. Again, it's just sort of a logical thing because there's a subdivision on the western side of Tuscarora there. There's destinations on the eastern side. It just sort of makes sense. But no, the short answer is no, we don't really have a good sense that there's strong pedestrian demand in that area. It's just more of an amenity.
I do have one other question. I mean, before you mentioned, there's a guidebook, you can't arbitrarily throw in stop signs and stoplights. What about just lowering the speed for some section of the road down to 20 or 25? I mean, a lot of people feel, when the high school dropped their speed limit, that was enough to throw people going back this way. So what if we took it somewhere, from the Weber Drive or the Baptist Church up to Namick and put in a 25-mile speed limit or something? Is that something legally, or I don't know what the proper word is, that you could do to maybe deter traffic a little bit?
Well, theoretically, the answer is yes. In terms of standards, in terms of like the guidelines, usually the speed limit reflects, and I know this sounds backwards. It always sounds backwards to me. The speed limit is usually based on how fast most people use the road. So there's what they call the 85th percentile speed. It's how fast, basically 85% of drivers go, like the top speed of like 85% of vehicles. Out on Tuscarora Road, that's over, it's more like 35 miles an hour. So keeping it to 30 is really what you're after. Trying to go all the way down to 25 is like a bit of a stretch. You'd need a lot more enforcement in that area. So in other words, the short answer is just changing the speed limit kind of creates more problems than it solves. Having said that, I gotta say, I do like that idea. It's not by the book, but to be honest with you, I do that idea. I find that idea very appealing. You've got homes on both sides. It's a more residential section of road. It makes sense sort of intuitively. But the reason we have not already recommended that is that's not by the book necessarily. But that's a great comment. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That's all we've got for now.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. I mean, the clearance on the farm equipment, that is really interesting. It's really critical. And again, short of going to your farm with a tape measure and a camera, which I am not going to do. That's not part of our study. But I would love to get a better sense of, what is the hugest piece of equipment and what's the vertical clearance?
Well, the big pump's longer than the tractor trailer.
Yeah.
Chisel plows. It's the chisel plows. It's the discs.
We probably, I think 6 inches is say 5 or 6.
Okay.
Again, my biggest concern is we would literally have to come to a stop.
Yeah.
If we've got the front wheels of our tractor, the back wheels of our tractor, and if the implement has front and rear wheels, we'll have to ease all 4 sets of those wheels across your speed bump.
Okay.
So I don't want to say that would take a minute, but it would force us to come to a complete stop.
And anytime we stop, there's a chance that people make really stupid choices. Like people pass us on the left side when we're making left-hand turns on the Canasarega Road during rush hour. And it's like, do you want to get in an accident? And so just whenever we stop, there's a chance for bad things happening.
Right. Or people think, oh, they stopped so I could pass them,
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. That's great to know. Thank you so much.
All right, Aaron, I'm going to ask Chris Carosella to unmute. All right. Actually, I just got a comment. I'll read that out later, but I'm going to move on. Let's see. Next up, apologize if I pronounced your last name incorrectly. Bob Funch.
There we go. Am I unmuted?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Bob French, and my comments are based on some comments that were relayed to me about 2 hours ago from the Chittenango Fire Chief, Jason Baker. His number one concern was the raised crosswalks. He has no problem with the flat crosswalks and the signs, but a raised crosswalk whenever we respond to an alarm down Tuscarora Road, they always try to stay on the main road. So they go down Route 5, take a left on Tuscarora, and then respond to all those neighborhoods up Tuscarora. General speed, depending on the severity of the alarm, would probably be 30 plus miles an hour. And he was worried what was going to happen when he went over that raised crosswalk at 30 plus miles an hour with the ladder truck or the bumper. It's just real safety for concern. He felt that they would have to slow down or stop when they went across them. And he just wanted me to remind the group that fire doubles every 30 seconds. So it may not seem a lot to a normal person, that it may take a minute or two extra to get there, but every 30 seconds that fire is doubling in size.
Okay.
That's his number one concern. Number two was the cul-de-sac. He personally wasn't a big fan of cul-de-sacs. I would probably have to agree with that. But he just wants to make sure that if that does happen, that it's, and I told him from what I saw, it was that it's a raised cul-de-sac, so they can actually go over some of it. But then he had a concern what happens in the winter if it's not totally cleared off. But the other thing is that when this is designed, that is taken into consideration the length. The ladder truck, I think, is 44 foot long, and the main pumper is 38 or 39. That's taken into consideration when this is designed, if it indeed does happen.
Oh, sorry, Mr. French, just to clarify, you're referring to the roundabout, correct? The
roundabout, yeah.
Roundabout, yes. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in general, the design of a roundabout, and again, I would not be the one designing it, but they are designed to accommodate tractor trailers, large 50-foot long trucks. They're certainly designed to accommodate emergency response equipment. So that is one that should be sort of okay. I know we've brought this up in other communities, this question of a roundabout, and that is always a number one concern. At one point we were asked by the town of DeWitt to consider a roundabout at the intersection of Route 5 and Erie Boulevard, right in front of a fire station. And talking to New York State DOT's main office roundabouts expert, they said, that should work. There's no reason that should not work. So large emergency equipment, it should be okay within that roundabout design. But again, that's another great comment on the raised crosswalks. I talked, Fayetteville has raised intersections. That's in the presentation. That's what I like to point out because it's so close to where you guys are. I talked to one of the fire chief in Fayetteville and asked him the question about do the raised intersections in Fayetteville, do they affect response time? Do they hurt your ability to move around the village? Those raised intersections are in a different location, so it's not apples to apples. But he said, no, he likes them. The mayor of Fayetteville likes them. But definitely, I'll just say this and then we can move on. When you look at the guidance on how and where to use raised crosswalks, emergency vehicle response time is always something that you should keep in mind. So it is designed to calm traffic. It's designed to slow vehicles down. And, Tuscarora Road is the main response route for emergency vehicles on the north side. So definitely a very valuable piece of input.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm going back to Mr. Denny again. I apologize for some who may have not had the opportunity yet to ask a question, but it's just how things are coming in with folks raising their hands. So, Mr. Denny, I think you should be unmuted.
Hey, just one quick thought is being lookers, and you've got 5 streets, roads, whatever you want to call them, all at that one spot. Snow gets to be a concern. And, when they run down, more and more snow gets built up from around them. So in any planning, I mean, I plowed the corner for many years, and sometimes it's difficult. So with all that snow buildup, I would like it to be a concern and thought through, you know, some thought process go into it. It's not as bad as it has been or could be.
Worse.
Okay. And is that specific to the eastern end of Tuscarora Road, or are you? Let's see. Are you able to unmute Mr. Denny? Hang on. Oh, I apologize. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's right at the five corners, at the very eastern end of Tuscarora Road.
They have never taken it.
Okay, hold on. We can skip there now. Dun, dun, dun. So this vicinity here, in other words, snow is a concern in this whole vicinity, in this area?
Where am I now?
Yeah, I apologize. There's no labels on this, but here's the signal that here's Tuscarora Road. There's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we're the first building on the right from the intersection as you're headed west on Tuscarora.
Okay. Right in here.
You take your red dot right there. Yep, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, certainly. And in other words, you know, you're talking about, say, if there was on-street parking, you know, where does the snow go, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we have entrances to the offices are right there, and we show grass there and stuff, but holy cow.
Yeah.
Now that's the first I've seen that view.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This is in the video presentation. So toward the end of.
Went through it.
Beg pardon?
Sorry. I went through it quickly. I didn't know I was going to be involved. I got
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, so take another look. This. You can pause the video at this point in the presentation, or I should say, this whole presentation is now on our. It's on the website where all the other Tuscarora Road information is. So you could just kind of pull this up. You know, this is as close as we have to any kind of a schematic or you know what this could theoretically look like to have on-street parking and a sidewalk and grass. You know, this is just a design concept. I can't overemphasize that. But you know, this is the kind of street profile that's used throughout the city of Syracuse and a lot of other communities. You know, it's not unusual to have on-street parking and driveways, and you know, snow plows. Basically, you know, vehicles sometimes do get covered in snow when they're not parked on street, but you know, folks dig themselves out. And snow plows generally push the snow, you know, honestly, I don't know where. Yeah, but yeah, you know,
but it's I see you've got a curb cut there too to get into the back parking, which is
right. Yep.
It just gets a lot of snow built up in it.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. All I can say is that, you know, all of Central New York gets lots and lots of snow, and on-street parking and driveways, you know, they manage with the snow.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And Mr. Pulver, you should be all set.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure if my microphone worked. Hey, I like this report. You guys done a great job. I thought it was did a really good job of explaining all the things. I was involved in this in the beginning, and only, you know, I came in on this to see if I could help at all. And I guess my comments would be that when we first started talking about this, our big concern was, I think we would say first was pedestrian safety. there's been incidents of serious problems on that road for pedestrians. I would say second is bicycle safety. And then the third is that people have a lot of trouble getting in and out of the adjacent neighborhoods, especially during rush hour. And it's largely because of the cut through traffic. So my point would be, I think it's important that as we go through this, that we keep our eye on those goals. Our goal, I think, is to keep people from cutting through Tuscarora to avoid Route 5 and going through the neighborhoods. And I think that's a measurable goal. And that I believe will impact, those safety issues that we're all concerned about. So, and the other thing is, I don't think this is a single project. It seems like this would be done in phases. Some phases, such as the crosswalks, it seems to me have tremendous community support, cost very little, and could get done very quickly. And then I think as you do the phases, I think you could measure the impact towards your goals. So maybe in the beginning, you could set goals as to what really the crossover traffic should be on Tuscarora, what would be acceptable. And then as you do, really acceptable phases, see what that impact is. And you may never even have to get to some of the more objectionable phases of the project.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah.
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, it goes. I certainly in the comments we've received to date, the roundabout concept is far more controversial than the idea of, at grade crosswalks in the locations that we've talked about. So certainly, I think you could safely say that there's consensus around the idea of improving crosswalks, and then some sort of off-road facility. In general, this has been fairly popular, the idea of a trail or a sidewalk along Tuscarora Road. It seems to be widely acknowledged that there's a problem, with bikes and pedestrians on Tuscarora. Tuscarora is just not wide enough and probably should not be widened, but adding some sort of trail or sidewalk, a lot of people have supported that idea. So, yeah. Now the devil's in the details. Whether it's a trail or a sidewalk is a different and more difficult question. Yeah. Oh yeah. Can we unmute Mr. Pulver? Yeah.
Just one more comment. I think that the trail needs to be plowed during the winter because I think that the roads even narrower, the safety issues with pedestrians are even more serious during the winter. And that, originally we were going to pave that and make sure it was plowed so that you could get across that street between the two neighborhoods. And I think that's an important thing that needs to be done.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. I know I was out there last winter and it looks like people, will trudge through it in the snow. But yeah. Okay. Mari, do we have any more questions in the chat?
There are a few that came in. I think some of them, Aaron, we may have covered. I'll just go through a couple of them. One is in regards to the size of the proposed or suggested roundabout. The comment here is this person has heard complaints about the one in Lakeport perhaps being too small, and then the other one at the 31 and 13 intersection perhaps being too large. So the question is, do we have a sense of what size the roundabout is that we may propose to include?
Great question. Yeah, I can't overemphasize the fact that we are not anywhere close to an engineering level. What you're seeing on the screen is a very, very rough concept. This is based on just the broadest outlines of how a roundabout is generally designed. So nothing that we've done to date should be taken, as like literally this is how it would look. This is just a rough idea. Yeah, I would say in terms of, how big or how small, 105 feet is, from sort of curb to curb on what they call the circulating roadway. That's this roadway, this piece of the road in here. They call that the circulating roadway. So that 105-foot dimension, it's probably workable, but it would, in reality, when you get into, if this is the way your community wants to go, if your community wants to explore the idea of a roundabout, the way that would most likely work would be you would want to bring in an engineering firm and have them throw out a couple of different ideas for a roundabout. Or potentially they would say, well, there's really only one that you need. The perfect design will give you that. But in general, they might throw out a couple of different ideas, shift the center of the road a little bit to the east, a little bit to the west, north, south, etc. To take into consideration drainage and other factors. But certainly, there's no question that a single lane is all that would be needed. I'm not going to stake my reputation on it or anything, but in terms of best guidance, what you're seeing here is a single lane. You only need one room for one car in the actual circulating roadway. That saves you a lot of space. Beyond that, the dimensions, the design. I guess also I would say, you would want to have something in the middle. That's what's missing, in my opinion, in the one in Bridgeport. There really is nothing. There's no vegetation in the center. There's nothing that really stops a vehicle from, kind of barreling right through it, other than a couple of signs. But come close to those. So in this case, it would be, what you get for the sort of the cost of a roundabout is you get something that looks nice. It would have some grass in the middle, possibly, some shrubs. You don't want to put a fountain in there. You don't want to have anything that, is going to attract pedestrians into the middle. But you want to have something that looks nice. And then you've got what they call the mountable center island. This is what enables large vehicles to cross, through the roundabout and take it at a sharper angle than cars do. So, this is kind of what you're looking at is a representation of the general features of a standard roundabout, but certainly not anything like the real design or real engineering dimensions or specifications. I hope hopefully that's more information than y'all were looking for.
There are a couple comments, Aaron, that came in speaking more to about if there were any adjustments to the speed limit on Tuscarora, what impact that may have. I think we talked a little bit about speed limits, but also there's some concerns as well as if speed limits were changed, could that or would that presumably now make perhaps Lake Street, as the example, a cut-through street, as I think we're hearing Tuscarora acts as a cut-through now. And if there were crosswalks installed, what do we think the adherence to the signage would be? As right now there's an opinion that the crosswalk as it exists on Route 5 through the commercial Main Street district really isn't adhered to.
That's a great question. Yeah, right. Wait, I'm sorry. Go back to the first part. The first part was if you lower the speed limit on Tuscarora, does that make Lake Street more appealing as a cut through now?
Yeah, they're more comments, opinion based. I certainly think it may have the potential. It may not. I think as we've started this study out, I think it was Mr. Pulver was talking about what are some outcomes here and what are some goals of this project. We're looking at ways to slow traffic. I think we've identified there is some speeding that occurs on the roadway. So we're looking at some implementation enhancement opportunities that could, perhaps slow traffic down. And we're also looking at some opportunities to improve the bicycle and pedestrian activity mobility as well throughout the corridor, given the lack of specific facilities and in some cases even a space, particularly a shoulder space for bicyclists and pedestrians. So I think blending those all together, as Aaron's talked about, today, and also through the online presentation that we have available for folks to take a look at. And we're really looking to build up a broader kind of, we use that term, a complete street for all to use Tuscarora Road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think what the thing that we've heard over and over again is that the function of Tuscarora Road from a regional perspective is as a cut through for commuter traffic. So you can see it in the traffic data. There are spikes in the morning and, spikes in the morning heading west and spikes in the evening heading east. Lines up very neatly with commuters who live on the eastern side of Chenango, going to work at, in the city of Syracuse region, city of Syracuse area, using Tuscarora as a cut through to avoid, the school zone down here and the traffic light over here, and just, congestion in through this area. To my mind, anything you do to make it harder for those commuters to cut through here is most likely to result in more vehicles on 5, and that's kind of from a sort of a strictly engineering or transportation planning perspective, Route 5 is designed, it's to accommodate more vehicles. It's part of the national highway system. It's got, it's got the design features of a facility that could handle more traffic than it currently sees. Whereas Tuscarora Road, no, fairly narrow shoulders, no sidewalks. It is more of a country road / residential road than Route 5 is. So anything you do to make Tuscarora Road, less desirable for those cut through commuters, that should make things better from a transportation perspective. Yeah. That would be my opinion on that. Wait, what was the other part of that? That was about the crosswalks? I'm sorry, Maria.
I think it was really just, again, a opinion comment. What would be really the adherence to following the signage as it's depicted, as it may not be followed right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's a very valid concern. What I can say is we've proposed, a raised crosswalk. We've also proposed the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And I don't think I have a good image of that, but you guys know them. They're around, this thing here. You push a button and lights start flashing to indicate that there's a pedestrian who wants to cross the street. Is compliance with that guaranteed? It is not. However, studies show that you get a measurable reduction in crashes by adding those beacons. So that is a demonstrated safety intervention, that's used widely in situations just like this. So we've looked at the sight distances for the different crosswalks we've proposed. You've got sufficient sight distance. Drivers should be able to see that. They should be able to see those lights flashing. And, nothing, unfortunately, I wish that there was anything that had 100% driver compliance. There really isn't. Even a raised crosswalk does not ensure total driver compliance. So.
Yeah, Mr. English, I believe, should be unmuted.
Yeah, just one question. As an alternative to raised crosswalks, what about using rumble strips preceding a crosswalk to get people's attention to pay attention to those flashing lights that you're talking about putting up on crosswalks? People kind of mindlessly tend to fall asleep mentally as they're driving, and that kind of wakes them up, gets their attention to, hey, look out ahead. You've got flashing lights, people wanting to cross, back it down a little.
Yeah, that's a good That's a great comment. Thank you. I have no idea what the answer to that is. I'll have to do some research. I've never heard of anybody proposing rumble strips on either side of a crosswalk to get people's attention and kind of slow people down. My understanding is that rumble strips are kind of noisy for adjacent properties, but I'm not sure. I would. That's a great. I love that. I'll look into that. Thank you. All right, Mario, can we go back to the Durfees? I'm sorry, Steve Durfee. I don't want to refer to you collectively. You're an individual, Mr. Durfee. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I forgot now, but I just got a comment that that kind of idea with a rumble strip alleviates the concerns that we all have with the elevated crossings. The Durfees have concerns with it. The emergency vehicle folks have concern with it. You know, that eliminates that issue. Yeah, there may be a little bit of a noise, but we can have green buffer space with trees or something like that along there. It alleviates that pretty well. And I've been around places where railroad tracks, for God's sake, run right past a house, and people who live there say, yeah, first week it was an issue, but after that we tuned it out.
Yep. Yeah. No, I like I said, I think this is a really interesting concept that I don't know. You know, we in the course of this project and other projects, we've looked at lots of different ways to make it safer, better, easier for pedestrians to get across a busy street like this. I don't recall ever coming across the idea of rumble strips on either side of a crosswalk. So that's just a great question. I'm going to look into that.
For the rumble strips, I just want to say you probably want to look into the road maintenance, because usually the rumble strip areas deteriorate before the rest of the road surface, and they're not where there's active traffic. So if you have rumble strips going across where there is active traffic, it'll be additional ongoing maintenance. Okay. I assume you'll find that, but you can look into it.
Yeah,
that's all I had to say.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, obviously, rumble strips are usually on the side of the road. So, but didn't they used to have them in front of like toll booths? I feel like back when there were toll booths in some areas, I feel like they'd throw down rumble strips. Anyway, that's a great input. Yeah, thank you. All right. Do we have anything else? Anything in the chat?
There's one that came in a little while ago, Aaron, and it's back in regards to the Tuscarora Bolivar intersection.
Yep.
I don't know if you're able to on screen bring up a slide that has that intersection, but the question really is, where are cars supposed to stop today when they come to this intersection? At the stop signs or right up at Tuscarora Road? So I'm guessing this is in regard to Bolivar and Lake Street approaches to Tuscarora, as the stop signs are set a few feet back from the intersection proper.
Good question. Where are vehicles supposed to stop? I gotta say, that sounds like a good, a good treatment for something like that, where there's ambiguity about where to stop. You know, generally you put down a stop bar. So that might be a good recommendation. If we're going to talk about reducing the skew there, realigning the approaches, throw in a stop bar to reduce that ambiguity. Yeah, and the short answer, you're supposed to stop at the stop sign. Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to Mr. Pulver.
Good idea.
I was just going to respond to that because I drive through there all the time. That I think that's pretty much dictated by the circumstances of that intersection. You know, you've got to get close enough to see up and down that road.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you were to put stop, you know, lines back farther, you know, you'd still have to creep up until you can see up and down the road.
Right. I was going to say, I'm teaching my 17-year-old how to drive, and I use the word creep all the time. You know what? You're supposed to, you know, stop, but then creep forward until you have a good line of sight on what is and is not coming down the road.
And with the skew on that one, I personally have to get pretty close, you know, to my neck doesn't, I'm an old man, so my neck doesn't turn well. It's just hard to see up the road. So I got to get pretty close to be able to see up the road.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at the traffic or the collision data. We have 5-year collision data for this intersection. You know, fairly relatively high number of collisions at this intersection, primarily right angle collisions. You know, that's what makes up 2/3 of the crashes at this intersection. And a lot of those right angles are one car is going northbound and the other cars coming westbound. And I was looking at that, and I mean, that is right where that angle of that, you know, skew is really sharp. And, you know, to kind of check to see what's coming from your, you know, right as a driver, it's just tricky.
And the other thing there is that you're coming down the hill. Yeah. So especially if it's slippery, you may not be able to stop in time to stop for that stop sign. In fact, I think at one point, if my memory serves, there were 4 stop signs there. And they had a lot of problems with that people would roll off into the ditch and things like that because they couldn't stop because you're coming down a hill.
Yeah, right. And that's something that people have pointed out relative to the roundabout concept as well. You know, is it a wise idea to talk about a roundabout where you're coming down a grade? You know, westbound is a grade, eastbound is a grade, and northbound is a pretty serious grade. You know, looking at those grades, the steepest one is that northbound on Lake. You know, that's the most serious slope for anybody coming to this intersection. Mm-hmm. And that's currently the one that has a stop sign. So that just seems like it's set up for problems as it stands. You know, with that slippery roads and and the hill and the stop sign. So,
okay, thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, does anybody else want to chime in? You can just raise your hand and we've cleared our queue, correct, Mario? Nobody else in line?
Correct. No one currently with their hand raised.
Okay. And it is 5:15. We're scheduled to go till 5:30. But you know, if nobody has anything else, I'm not going to waste your time with regaling you with anecdotes of my life.
Oh, we got one. All right. Donna Lynch, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, I'm with the Creek Walk Committee, Advisory Committee in the Village of Chittenango. Our big concern is safety for people using the Creek Walk and the neighborhood trails crossing Tuscarora Road. Way back when we started thinking about this section, I had ordered some material from the Cross Alert Systems, and their Cross Alert Systems is a little bit different than the one that we have downtown, where there's difficult to see, I think, flashing lights on that triangle panel. I've seen people go through that and not have seen it. I have to admit, I've even gone through it myself once or twice and just haven't been aware of those lights being on when somebody was trying to cross because they were stepped back too far. But I like the Cross Alert System because it has large lights that will flash both for the trail user and for the drivers on the highway. And it's activated from both sides, so that if there's activity on the trail or if there's activity on the road, both of those users are alerted that somebody's coming and alerting them to slow down. And on the trail side, it would alert them to stop for the traffic.
Okay.
So I'm sure that there's different companies that deal with different ones, but I particularly like this one. I felt that would make the trail and the road safer for people.
And so, in other words, does the pedestrian, the person who's on the trail, do they push a button to?
Yes, they can push a button to cross, but they can also be advised because it's controlled by a camera for the traffic in both directions.
Okay.
So that they don't have to just push the button, but they can.
Oh, okay. In other words, there's an automated.
That's right.
That sees the pedestrian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's camera activated.
Okay. And this is not with the in pavement lights, right? Like that currently is on 5 in the.
No, it's different. It's different from that.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. Yeah. Thank you. Crossover system. Okay. Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, look, I think we can go to Mr. McCabe.
All right. Okay, now it's working. Well, I'll tell you, this electronic stuff is a couple of ladder rungs above me. Going back to we're looking at this creek walk, not the creek walk. We're watching this trail that is being proposed to go along the north side of Tuscarora, past Bolivar, up the hill. Could you flash that other picture there so we could see it as it gets to the bridge?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so now we come down along the north side, and so we're going to add a bridge over the creek, what we're saying here, so people can access anything on the east without having to get out into the traffic zone.
Yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. In the comments that we received to date, I'm pretty sure no one, or maybe one person, has talked about that idea of an additional bridge in that location. Do you have thoughts on that as an idea?
I walk around the town a lot. I get a lot of exercise, and one of the ways is I'll cut down on Tuscarora Road, come into 5, walk through the town, then walk back 5 coming home. And going over that bridge is always one of those things. I've come up to it, stopped, looked to see if there was any westbound traffic, and if there's none, then I'll take a chance and walk across. But I have been caught when somebody comes through, and suddenly I try to get really, really skinny.
Yeah.
And wave my arms so that they can see me, because people may be looking ahead, but it doesn't take much for a vehicle to waver 6 inches.
Yep.
And that's all it would take. That's a highly dangerous bridge there for a pedestrian to walk over. So glad you've got that added to that. And my wife has a question she wanted to ask as well, and then I'll come back with a third question.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Aaron. I would just like you to remind us what the Tuscarora website is that you referred to earlier.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think I have that written down anywhere. That would be www.smtcmpo.org/Tuscarora. I'm wondering, how would I put that out there, Maria? Is there wait, hold on.
You'll put it in the chat.
Can I put it in the chat? I don't know. I'm not sure that that's going to work. I don't know that y'all can see the chat. I think we, hang on here. I please bear with me just a moment.
Yeah, Aaron, I'll try sending to everyone in the chat. I believe the way that we have it set up is we can communicate with everyone, but to the participants, they can only communicate with the host, myself, and the co-host.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The third thing I wanted to bring up, going back to the most eastern side, where you have the Salvation Army and across the street are a couple of buildings and what have you. And I believe somebody was speaking about this earlier with the on-street parking.
Yep.
Yeah, this one here. Looking at the picture, it does show entrance between the parked cars going into between two buildings there. On the left-hand side, right there.
Right here.
And what we have there is the Chittenango food cupboard. And we have a lot of people who are coming in there to pick up food. And also there's the delivery trucks that come in there to drop the food off. So that needs to be a fairly open area. Plus in back, if you look at the picture on the upper above the smaller building, there are vehicles parked right in there. And that's a residential place on the right-hand side, right there. And so the people have to, if the way it's set up here in this picture, they would have to come out this one little area to get on or off the road. And, assuming that there are parked cars along the entire side. And is that going to be a problem going downstream? You gotta get out to the cars that are parked before you can find out whether you can take a left or right.
Right.
And you want to have a clear field of vision when you're pulling out into this area. Right now, even without the parked cars, sometimes it's kind of I didn't see that car coming. It's behind a pole or something like that.
Sure.
I don't know whether removing, you got two cars, the space, then another car, blah, 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 to the right. If we made that wider, got rid of the third car and made made that opening all the way through there and moved the telephone pole right in the middle of that darn thing. So it would be wide open so people could see either way. And when the food truck comes, I don't know if we've had a tractor trailer come in there, but we've had some sizable trucks come in and back up, and then we've got to unload the stuff and take it in the building and blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, could some of that traffic go, this is Manor Drive, right? Could some of that go, this way? Like through here?
That building there, I believe, is a childcare type of thing. And historically, in the back of it, where the red is now, they have cones set up to keep people from doing that exact same thing.
Okay.
Because they have kids out there playing.
They cross the kids over.
Yeah, they cross the kids over. So that I don't think is going to be a feasible alternative to what we have.
Great. Yeah, that's great input. Yeah, that's very valuable. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is this design in general doesn't mess with what you're talking about if this capacity, if this width were sort of maintained, get rid of this space, relocate this telephone pole, and now you've got a nice, two-way driveway essentially.
Yes, it would be wider and I believe safer for people, at all times.
Okay.
I noticed on another thing that is continuing here, from your red, if you go to the small building and then there's a space between the small building right in there.
Yep.
Currently, that is a opening as well for people who are parked in back, residents, that they can come out through there as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So take out more of that on-street parking.
Yes.
To open that up. Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, yeah, that's very valuable, but thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening to me.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. We are coming up right to 5:30. We got a couple of minutes left. Does anybody else have anything else they want to toss in?
Aaron, if you don't mind, there was a one additional question in the chat, which I think it's actually a pretty timely one given where we are, the time that we have available. If you can speak a little bit to kind of what we would consider our next steps after tonight with finishing up the planning report, just to give the folks on the line here a sense of some time and what to expect.
Yeah, right. Excellent. Yeah, as I said, at the outset, we started this project about a year ago. We did it, basic data collection, did an online survey to kind of drill into some of the issues, figure out what really is, from the community's perspective, what you guys see as real problems on Tuscarora Road. From there, we moved into exactly what you're looking at, these different concept ideas. From here, we're going to take your input, take these concepts, take all of the information we've gathered to date, compile it into a report, and that will be the final product. That will be prepared over the next several months. So we've got a study advisory committee that's made up of representatives of the village, the town, Madison County, New York State Department of Transportation. We will work with that committee to, kind of package up the rest of the report, and then it will be presented to the SMTCs, my office, the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. It'll be presented to our planning committee and then our policy committee. After it is seen by the policy committee and kind of, hopefully they approve it. Once it's approved by that policy committee, then it will be released to the public, and it'll go on our website, and it'll be, broadly disseminated. Yeah, disseminated. That will be, that is several months. We've got a fair amount of document preparation work to do. But we would expect to wrap this up, certainly spring of next year. By say February and March of next year, we would expect this to be a completed project with a complete project report that is out on the street and available for public review. Mr. McCabe, did you have another comment or question? Oh,
Okay, no, I didn't have one.
Oh, okay.
Playing with electronic stuff. So we're all set, I think.
Okay.
Well, I could throw up something here. It would be wonderful at the intersection of Tuscarora Lake and Route 5 if that empty Nation building on the right-hand side, as we look at the building, this picture, which has been empty now for years, if that could be somehow alternated or something could be done, because I have watched tractor trailers trying to turn that corner. They're going north, now they want to go east, and they literally have to wait for the entire other side to be open before they can make the turn, because their trailers are 44 feet long, or they drag their tires up over the sidewalk and what have you. And that area could be just made better for the big guys.
And the pedestrians.
Okay. So in other words, are you thinking we could, add a lane or something, or move the center line? Kind of
not that one. The one down below.
It's the southeast corner, Aaron. Yeah, right where you are.
Southeast. Now it's owned by the nation, I think, the United Nation. So that, I'm sure, is issues you'd have to deal with. But gee, if they could do something there to make it easier for those guys and actually make the place look a little better too.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's very nice. Okay. Thank you for that input. Yeah. I gotta say that's not in the scope of my study, but yeah, that's great input, for the village to consider as you, think about options. But yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and putting this out. We really all appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Let's see.
Oh, we have one more.
One more, okay, and this will close us out. This will be we're now at 5:30, and to respect everybody's time, we'll close her out. But Liz Ross, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I'm hoping that everyone who's listening has been able to get more information. I'm co-chair with Tim Stell of the Tuscarora Road Advisory Committee. I did want everybody to know, because I know there's questions about various people that are business owners, and we took the time to talk to a lot of business owners up and down Route 5. There was a study that was done, the 2020 study that I think Mark Pulver was involved in. It was done by Syracuse University, that showed if they could have more traffic staying on Route 5 rather than going down Tuscarora Road heading west, it could bring business into the community. So I did go around and talk to business owners and ask them how they would feel about having more traffic on Route 5 and less on Tuscarora. And they were 100% for it. And we're actually thrilled with the idea they might get a little bit more exposure. When they were doing the construction on Tuscarora Road, just past the creek, on that curve, and they had to close the road down, some of the restaurants actually saw an increase in business. So I just wanted to mention that to people, that we've tried to take into consideration businesses, and especially Durfee Farm and the emergency vehicles, and the comments that everybody's made have been incredibly helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, being able to hear everybody make comments, ask questions, it's extremely valuable to us understanding what's really going on out there. We look at a lot of data, we look at a lot of maps. There's no substitute for being able to get in touch with a group of people who use this road all the time. You're familiar, you know how you use it, what the issues are. So thank you very, very much for your time and your input.